why don't we get started? It being 6:05, I will call the Hamilton Finance and Advisory Committee to order. We will take roll call attendance, starting with you, Valerie.
Valerie McCormick here.
Dave Wenger here. I'm sorry, Dave Wenger here.
Christina Shankar-Grove here.
John Prulidge here. Nick Tenson is unable to make the meeting. All right. Why don't we jump in? And Diane, not to put you on the spot, but I did just talk to Joe. And really, I think at the outset, maybe we talk a little bit about process over the next week to 10 days as we get to finalize not only the budget, the votes, but also our commentary. So I think an invite was sent out earlier today for a meeting with the BOS on Monday at 6, where we will probably, and we can certainly discuss this, but I think do all of our votes maybe at that same meeting. We certainly could do them tonight. We don't have Nick though, and I'd rather have all the votes be unanimous. But I thought as we walk through the warrant, we could at least see if we have a consensus on how we're going to recommend, and then we can formally make the recommendation vote on Monday, if that makes sense to everybody.
Yes,
I think that's smart.
And certainly, if there are things we leave open for further discussion with the BOS, we can do that as well. Regarding the budget and sort of commentary, I did just talk to Joe, and I'm sure Diane, you would probably be giving us the same. There hasn't been an interim draft of the budget because certain things are being finalized, double, triple checked, and all that. Which is fine. And as I told Joe, I think we'd rather have what the final version is before making sort of iterative changes to our documents. But it sounds like, Diane, those are going to be ready the next day or so.
Yes. What I've been doing since your last meeting when you received your budget handbook is just keeping track of all of the changes. So getting, the final numbers from the school, any other amendments. We had some budget reductions, some of which we reinstated. We got some final numbers for our library assessment, which was very favorable. And so that has kind of trued up nicely in the scheme of things. And so, yes, I've utilized Marissa's reports to track those changes, implement them through. I've been giving Joe, if you remember on your budget handbook, there's a little estimated tax rate sheet that all the numbers sort of roll up into. I know some people consider it like a budget roll-up, so to speak, because it looks at the expenditures and the revenue. And so that has been updated. Marissa has come in a couple of days here and there. So everything that I do, I make sure that it's consistent with how she maintains and manages her worksheets. And so far, so good. So that part has been going along smoothly. And of course, I implement all of these changes into the Munis software and things like that. With respects to the warrant, Joe gave us a draft, but we haven't really sat down and looked at it in detail. I understand in years past that sometimes you guys like to understand like what the tax rate impact is for each of those financial articles. And so one of the things I mentioned to Joe the other day was, do you want Marissa to, come in and assist with that process? So, because she's still, a resource to us. She was nice enough to extend herself. So we try to do a lot of the preliminary work here, and I vet everything out with Marissa. And the one key piece, like I said, is that warrant and getting us ready for that Monday meeting. So we have all of the documents, like you said. You don't really want to see the final, and that's smart because we do have all of the changes. But what I gave Joe the other day is a nice little summary sheet, which he can show you. He can show you all the movement. I could as well, but it shows you all the movement from where we started with on your budget meeting, right? Your original one. And like I said, all of those amendments coming, giving us to where we are and how it impacts that bottom dollar, right? Of course, when I did all of those changes, we have all of the calculations that, you know, are dictated upon what that final budget is. So like when you think about your financial policies and the percentages that are used to calculate what that number is, I made sure that we updated those as well. So there's a small little change in there, but we've been tracking that too. And so, we're pretty solid in terms of keeping all the documents up to date. It's now just trying to pull it all together for your warrant process. And like I said, I'm pretty sure that Joe will try to utilize Marissa in any way that she can. I know that there's some work being done like on a budget document as well, but we don't necessarily, when Marissa first started that process, the state was assisting us with, the certain format. So we don't have it in that exact sense, in terms of the spreadsheets, but we've been giving things to Pat to see if he can prepare them. But I understand from Pat that, our warrant will be the same, where it will consist of all the appendices. The budget document would be a supplement in greater detail, right?
Right.
Essentially. So that's where we are. And of course, I was, helping David with some of those OPEB questions, which I was going to touch on a little bit today, because I know that the topic came up at a selectmen's meeting, and I just didn't know where that was heading forward, because I wanted to see if there's anything that I can assist with in some of David's questions related to like forecasting, what our status is, where do we stand today versus, years down the road once that official document has been accepted, right? And so just trying to help wherever I can, but I don't want to go on too much because I don't want to like bore you to death with my narrative.
And the official trust was accepted and signed last on Monday.
On Monday, right.
So
And the gentleman who does the Odyssey prepares our actuarial, and I was trying to assist David the best I can in answering his questions, and hopefully I had done so with Parker's help, but he also extended our so if we wanted to get into the weeds a little bit in terms of having a projection, he does offer that service. So I wanted to make sure that if you want to explore that, there's a small little fee, but it may be a very nice tool to have if you want to give the citizens or town meeting an understanding of why you've taken such action, right? What we're doing with it, like David was saying. So what is our annual commitment? What is that obligation that we've established to be maintainable, right? And then from there, in doing so, so if the base is 125, like you guys are currently doing, where does that put us in the long term, right? And like I said, he can provide that service. That's a unique skill that in terms of being an actuarialist, I don't even know if I'm saying the word right. So like I said, I'm happy to help if that's a service that you want to seek. And that's all I have.
David, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, most people would prefer that. Anyway, so I'm glad the selectmen have now executed the documents. Was there an explanation as to what occurred, the slippage, why it hadn't happened sooner?
I spoke to Joe about it, and he did indicate that it just sort of dropped off. Yeah. And like I said, I even spoke to Marissa about it. So I told Marissa sort of about what your questions were, and I indicated that I got XYZ answers from Parker, who was extremely helpful. Like I said, she did in fact tell me that she had given all of the information to Joe to bring it to the next level. So like I said, Joe, admittedly said that he just must have, forgot to do so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
And thank you for your help.
No problem.
And I did hear from Joe, and not to get into the specifics, because I think we'll just wait for the number, but that since the last budget meeting, the numbers have definitely improved overall. And in addition to just the school portion, which we knew would
Mhm.
improve, but that I won't like quote specific numbers because I don't know how to final, but we certainly
Yeah.
we have more. We will have more levy capacity at the end of or as opposed that we thought we were going to have. Originally, we thought we were going to basically be at 0, and we will have some additional capacity
Yeah.
with the current budget.
Right, because this document that I had done, from that meeting, right? So I took in, and I treated it in various rounds. Like, so round 1, we did those initial cuts, which included the school. Then we did some departmental cuts. Then we had some savings when we got some final numbers on some items, right? And I think it brings us down to a reduction. And again, all of this is just in draft form, but just to give you an idea of 469,000. So sure, it does have a nice, residual effect on your bottom dollar. So, and like I said,
I was gonna say, I think that the tax rate is also now I should say, the indicative tax rate, since nothing's finalized until it's this year, is now below $18, and I think it was somewhere around $17.90 or so. Once again, we'll wait till the final numbers, but it certainly has come down.
Yes, it has.
And we can go out and line by line on the details on that on Monday once we've got the final numbers. But at least it's a good news for
yeah. It is good news, right? Go team, right?
Nice job again. Yeah. I mean, you guys, the town staff and employees did a great job last year. And again, it feels like this year, everyone just keeps working, keep working at it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
that's
historically
exactly,
it always goes up, and so sometimes you really have to make a conscious effort to bring that budget down, because all of the the budget very seldomly goes backwards, right? So again, and some of these things too, when you think about it, it's when you first start your budget projections, in these figures, you had a $500, you had a $500,000, forgive me, number in there for capital. So as you bring that down, that's a nice chunk. And then you get, so sometimes when your estimates are, because you want to be conservative, right? So you make sure that there's enough money that you're budgeting for, and then as the real numbers come in. So sometimes it's just a matter of not necessarily, digging deep into people's pockets. It's sometimes just a matter of the fact that we had an estimate that we wanted to make sure was stable enough, suitable enough, because you don't want to come in low and then, so then as that comes in as a true number, then that then that savings comes in. So those are kind of the nice things, like the library was one of them, and, it had a capital item in there, and, there was an estimate which brought the number down. So as that estimate doesn't come to be, and you take out the capital, the savings is beneficial. So
no, and I certainly appreciate that process, because when you're right up against the levy limit, you have to err on the side of caution, because if you can't find out at the last minute, that all of a sudden you're Prop 2.5 votes. So that makes a lot of sense.
So just so I'm clear, there's a lot of places in our commentary where we're referring to dollar amounts, and we're waiting for those to be finalized, and then we'll be able to get those and plug them in. Is that right?
Yes. So exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you
Oh,
meant,
no, I'm sorry. Diane, yeah.
I didn't know if you were going to be looking for help from this office. Yeah.
Like for example, 2-3 is almost all like there's a ton of holes in it. There's also additional commentary I've got to put in there, but a lot of the numbers I've got in there are just your placeholder numbers until we get the final numbers. So on that note, just to so the Monday meeting will finalize our votes and any questions related to the budgets, because the numbers will be final at that point in time. And then I would propose we also meet next Wednesday as well, with the sole focus on then looking at the sort of final version of the commentary. so that we can have that, wrapped up to give to Joe to submit, because it has to be submitted by next Friday.
And to, if I may, John, to Christina's point, after we reach our final posture on our commentary, if we can just pass it by Diane in terms of number verification.
Yeah, no, exactly. Diane, if you could help us with that, that would be great.
Right.
Yeah, so once we're done, we'll send it to you and just ask that we make sure we get the numbers right.
And then again, once we verify that the numbers as recommended are accurate, right, in terms of the budget, then like I said, in years past, you usually try to come up with that tax impact, right? That impact of whatever that dollar amount is. And that's something that you still seek, right? So if I'm just trying to coordinate so we have the information that we need at each of those respective meetings on between now and next Monday, you'll be working on your commentary, right?
That's right.
Getting
Yep.
physical dollar amounts in those placeholders. So on Monday night, that will be ready, or do you, is it going to be ready beforehand and that you would like the finance department to look at it for the Monday meeting? Or will you be doing your commentary, coming up with the dollar amounts to present at the Monday's meeting with the Board of Selectmen, and then vetting it off from there for your Wednesday meeting? I just don't want to
I think it depends on when you have the final numbers. Like if you had the final numbers tomorrow, we might be able to have another draft of the commentary by Monday. But I'd really look at more of the focus being on maybe reviewing the commentary between Monday and Wednesday.
Okay.
And then if you're certainly, if you can either give us any comments you have beforehand, before our meeting on Wednesday, or you can attend our meeting on Wednesday, because that's the meeting that we'd have to finalize all of our commentary.
I see. Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of the tax rate impact, I think that normally has gone on the warrant.
That's right.
And not in the commentary. Or we could keep it in the commentary, but it's been printed in the warrant, I believe.
That's how it is in the draft right now. It has it in there. So that you don't have to wait for us for that. That's based on the budget, as soon as the budget's final.
Oh yeah, definitely. You definitely can put that, because that'll be sort of happening in parallel to our work on the commentary. Will be the finalizing of the warrant. So you don't need to wait for us for those tax rate information. And then we'll pull, sometimes we mention them in our commentary, but we'll just pull it directly from the warrant.
Okay.
Because we'll also be getting drafts of if years pass or any indication, there'll probably be like 6 drafts of the warrant in the next week, and we'll start getting really.
Yes, I've seen those. Exactly. Okay, so from where we stand here, just to recap, once that final budget has been approved and vetted, meaning that we've reviewed all our documents, we made sure we had all of our changes, any trickle effect that goes through any of these programs have been made. Once that final budget number is done, then you're correct. We could probably look at the warrant because we have that physical number. We can prepare our calculations to have that tax number in there, right? So what the impact is on the tax rate for those financial items. And then in one of the versions that you get to add your commentary, that potentially will already be in there if in fact we have that. And I do think that we'll probably have those final budget numbers, if not tomorrow, by the end of the week. So we're definitely in line to help support contribute right to that warrant process in time for your meetings Monday or the Wednesday. But it sounds like Wednesday is the drop dead timeline.
Yeah, so
pretty close to it. Yeah.
Yeah, Wednesday, pretty much we have to finalize what we're saying, and then it just needs to be double checked that make sure it's correct, and it's got to go to the printer on Friday. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Because I reached out to Pat today. I said, when is I asked him when the whole timeline was for the warrant, meaning, when do you need language? When do you need appendices? And when is it going off to the printer? So I just touched base with him today. So you're right about that.
Great. Great.
Okay.
So I have a question for something like I was writing the commentary for the capital expenditures, and like maybe I don't know, we'll get the final number when the budget's final, but we have a little bit of explanation. We normally put in like, these are the things that, these are the 4 items or whatever, however many items are in the capital expenditures. Am I able to find that somewhere now, or is that also something I need to wait for the final budget?
I believe Joe finalized his capital budget. I think it came in at like 338, 638, something like that. So again, a reduction from the placeholder of 500 to the 338. He did provide us with a small little recap of what those items are. But if you're saying you don't have, you didn't get a copy of that, I'm sure he can, forward it along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But will it be, this is just my not being able to remember how this has happened before, my inexperience with it. When we get the final budget numbers, are we going to get, is that going to be a complete thing with all this information in it? Because I could just wait for that if that's the case.
Yeah, I've asked Mercer about that in the past, because before, once, so how you guys have the 5-year capital plan. Okay, so what are the capital projects approved for the fiscal year that you're preparing the budget? And I don't know if it was last year, but the year before, Marissa would just do a spreadsheet, right? And it would contain all of the projects that were approved and the dollar amount for those. Joe has done something similar to that, and he's, prepared that same sort of spreadsheet, but he's also included like where the money is coming from, whether it's the tax rate or free cash or things like that.
Okay.
So to answer your question, I would say, yes, there has to be some sort of supplemental documentation that will list out all of those projects with their approved dollar amount.
Okay.
And I
Yeah,
assume that's going to come from Joe.
It's usually like a 1-page appendix to the warrant.
Yes, correct.
That then lists everything that make up that 339.
Yeah.
Which I think if we, I've got somewhere in my notes, and I think it's of what actually is included in that. And it's from that capital plan.
Yeah, I can see it.
Can't remember what the document is. And it may just be actually the latest capital plan that went around. I can see if I can find that for you, Christina. My understanding of what it is.
All right. Well, or I can wait and see what we get when we get the final budget numbers. And if that doesn't have enough information, then I'll ask.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I think it's definitely in the final numbers that we'll see. We'll see the amount, and then they should have. And if you just ping Joe, I'm sure you can basically ask him if there's. I'm looking at the warrant. It's Appendix D.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
If they've got a draft of that yet, because it has to be produced for the warrant.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was able to find it. It has like the NIPD's phase 3, 60,000, the HVAC for 70,000, the replacement of the roof that's at the library. So that capital item that we talked about briefly of $152,000, 638 police cruiser. Those are items that are being funded from free cash. And then like the planer attachment for deer loader, 35,000, squad truck 185, again in the operations, and whether or not the bonding for the he has on there the bonding and the bonding for the town hall. Just so you know, I think some of your preliminary figures were talking about a $4.7 million project, and I think they've kind of reduced that number down to 3.4. If they're going to borrow. Marissa made sure she made provisions for that first interest payment. Again, at 4.7, it was I think like 93,000. Now with the 3.4, comes in at 68. So our budget amendments reflect that savings as well. So that's just a quick recap. But again, I believe this is what Joe gave me when we were talking about getting the numbers, so we know what the dollar amount was.
And just so it's clear, because a lot of times that capital plan that the Capcom comes up with, like Diane said, it's going to have a bunch of stuff, not only the free cash articles, it's going to have the operational budget as well as things like town hall, anything they sort of, consider to be capital in the large sense of the word. You don't need, though, Christina, to actually go into the detail of those other things. So example, anything in the operational budget, you would not discuss because it's not part of that article. It would just be the ones in this year, since we're doing all those by free cash, it's just the free cash ones.
Yeah, and that's the amount that comes to the 338. So
Exactly. Yep.
you're correct. The free cash, the capital portion is the 338, all funded by free cash. Yep.
Right.
And John, the use of that 338 it keeps us above our minimum policy in terms of free cash.
Using that 338.
Yes.
Yes, it should. We double check the numbers, but I'm pretty certain it does.
I want to make sure of that.
Yeah.
Is that a, okay.
Yeah, because I thought even at the 500 level, I think it was still going to be above that level.
Yeah, that was my memory.
But yeah, we certainly should
confirm it.
That's. Let me make a note of that. That's a good point, David, because that's.
Yeah, I think that'll come up when we do the commentary in detail, because there's discussion about our policies are that we have, X percent, and doing this cash transfer means that we'll have
Right.
this amount, and that brings us to, that amount. So I think, and I'm going to be, Diane, I'll be asking you those questions in detail eventually when we get there. That's
That's
kind
good,
of
because
thing.
I've been reviewing I had to actually review them a little bit in detail, because as I was working on doing that estimated tax sheet, and as you change those numbers, it changes the transfer numbers because of the percentages and the thresholds, right?
Right.
And making sure you met those, right? And
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why there was no transfer this year for the capital stabilization, because you had already met those thresholds and you didn't have to. The general stabilization was different, and hence why you have a transfer for that. That's looking
Right.
like 346 at the moment.
And the actual policies are usually any change in the general spending level. Sometimes we'll change that exact reserve.
Yeah, that's right.
Only
So I kept
by
chasing my tail every time I
right,
made the
like a
change.
fraction
Like,
of a
oh,
percent,
Jesus,
but-
now I got to go back and do this
Right.
again. I'm like, okay, no more changes. Okay, we got it.
Exactly.
It's solid now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking at and we'll confirm all the numbers, obviously, David, but I'm looking at the presentation from early February. It looks like free cash, aside from like stabilization funds, was it 5.4%? I think that's like net of the FY22 budget.
And that was with the 500.
And that would have been with a $500,000 placeholder.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we can look at the.
All right, so probably makes sense to, you want to just walk through the warrant?
Yeah.
And maybe we can also, as we go through each article, talk about, whether there's, whether we have a consensus, which I think in most of these we will. And then also if there's whoever drafted the commentary, if anyone has comments on the commentary, or if the person drafting the commentary had questions, thoughts, things to raise for the group, we can tackle those now. And then see where we are.
Do you want me to share my screen and look at it on the screen?
That would be great. That would actually really help.
I will. Oops. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Wait, where did it all go? I just want to clean this up a little bit. So here's, you guys can see this, right?
Yeah.
The draft. So here's the draft. That's the introduction.
Yeah, and the introduction, that's the old one. It's all highlighted, but that'll be sort of a combination of some of the stuff that was in the draft report. Although the draft report was sort of looking backwards, the annual report. But some of the commentary that talks about the challenges the towns face, there'll be similar themes throughout this introduction. But then I want to add a section that'll be specifically about the budget process this year. As well as sort of, because we're going to that forecast, some commentary introducing that as well. But I think at our next meeting, we can go, I'll have a draft of that. We can go into that in more detail, because I think that's I definitely welcome, comments and additions to that section.
All right, and then for Articles 1 and 2, so by the way, everything was completely renumbered and reordered from
Totally.
when
I
we
thought
went
I had a
through.
really good guess as to what the numbers were going to be, and I was way off.
So that took a while, just me like
Yep. Oh, it does.
reorganize those. But Articles 1 and 2, it says these articles are self-explanatory and do not require additional comment. The only thing is that the Article 1 is the election of officers, but then there's some, and maybe I can actually bring up the warrant draft also. So can you see
great.
both?
Perfect.
Can you see both of those?
Yeah.
So here, so it has the Article 1 and then the things that are the people that are going to be elected. And then it has this question about the debt exclusion. So should we, I wasn't sure if that was really self-explanatory or if we should explain that a little bit.
This is what I would maybe we sort of say that I think we highlight the fact that part of 1-1 is that there will be a question on the ballot, and I think probably I'd say reference the commentary on the whatever the article is now 2- whatever for the town hall.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really good point, that this 1-1 is not as self-explanatory.
And reference the, do you remember which warrant article it is, the number? Or
I can, hold on, give me 2 seconds and I'll scroll through it. It is, oh, it's right at the end. Yeah, it's 2-15.
all right.
I'm sorry, it's actually 2-16. That was the CPC part. So, yeah.
Okay, and
2-16.
1-2 is to hear the town officers and committee reports. And Article 3 is the consent motion. I think that's fine. Article 2-1 is the compensation classification tables. And again, this is one that I don't think we have the information for yet, or not easily accessible, right? Like,
The compensation table is available. Is that what you're referencing?
so if you can see, so what we would do is say, Article 2-1 proposes amendments to the town's personnel bylaw, blah, 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 blah. The requested changes include, and then have a list of what the changes are. So I need to see what those proposed changes are, so I can kind of summarize them for people.
I see.
Yeah, and I think, and usually it's when they're, um, I'm not
Are these
even-
for like pending union contracts or the classification table? Again, we have an appendix for that, right? For the classification table, but you're more interested in like the specific dollar amounts that stem from contractual changes or changes.
Actually,
It's actually less the dollar amounts and it's more the, like if positions were added or,
Oh, I see.
were adjusted. So
Or-
for example, say there were
Okay.
no changes to any positions. Would the compensation table change year to year just based on union contracts, or would it not actually change if you didn't change any positions?
It changes every year. Yes.
Yeah, so
because-
I think that the changes that are automatic because of collective bargaining agreements, we don't really go into details of what those
Right.
are. It's more when things are added to the table, or there are other sort of substantive changes. And even then, there's not a ton of commentary we put on this, but it's just enough to give people the, I think we'll probably make a blanket statement about, collective.
That it reflect, yeah. So something to the effect that the classification table as presented reflects a 2% COLA, and then, 0% for contracts that are under negotiation or whatever the case is, right? So just
Something-
try to
exactly.
summarize what is reflected in the compensation table and perhaps what isn't.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And John, sometimes we throw in the equitable sentiment about maintaining some degree of
Maintaining
equivalency
service. Yeah.
for
Right.
our people and, for example, school people. If
Yeah.
you're so inclined.
You may find that
Yeah.
in the 2019 version.
I did
Commentary.
see that, and I didn't know, I don't know. Yeah, do we want to put that in? I mean, the teachers are under negotiation right now.
Yes,
Um,
it remains historically accurate, and it might be a nice suggestion for the pending bargaining. And I think it's a nice equitable concept that we may wish to support on behalf of our employees, both union and non-union.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean, I also think it's a question of, because I'm going to put it in a couple places in commentary that
Yeah,
the
'cause-
school, they're undergoing negotiations right now, which is for the contract. When you think about dollar amount, is going to have the biggest impact upon the town, because the school budget's the biggest part of the budget and personnel is most of their budget. So where they come up with on these COLAs has huge implications for future budgets.
Right. And if I may just point out, like, so oftentimes when I go through this process, I'm like, it's not, we do this every year, right? So the first thing that I do is say, look at how it was done last year. So, the brief summary, that's your commentary, right? And then, is that your commentary or the selectmen's?
No, that's the selectmen's.
Oh, I see. So if I looked at last year, in looking at last year's, I should say, it just says the classification compensation table reflects a cost of living increase for settled contracts and non-union employees.
Yep.
So that's just the brief summary. And then you go through, and so the finance committee elaborates on that.
A
Yeah,
little
so-
bit, like-
Further.
Yeah, so
Like
for
we-
example, last year it said these requested changes include a reduction in hours for, and I don't know, I deleted it now, for a administrative position. An elimination of one part-time firefighter, a reduction
Right.
in 7, I just made that up, I have no idea, but we kind of said like, why is it going up this amount? Well, here's the explanation of why. We cut this person's hours, we increased over here, we added another person over here, that kind of thing. So we want some
Okay.
kind of explanation in words of why the numbers look the way that they look. And like John said, if it's just this year, it's just purely, there weren't any changes made to how many employees we have or how many hours they worked, then, maybe there's not much explanation. But
Okay.
I don't recall right now. So at some point I'll have to look at that appendix and maybe ask if I can't
And I-
figure
and I
out
can-
what happened.
Yeah, and I can try to, do a little bit of digging as well, just to see if we had any major changes from this year to last that would be helpful in populating there.
Yeah, and if you see Marissa, she'll know exactly, because usually what we often makes in the commentary is pretty close to a cut and paste from what she gives us on what the specific changes are. And then we may add additional commentary to that, but usually she'll give us sort of the line item changes. Looking at the one from last year, which there were actually like 8 of them. I think that was more than usual.
Yeah, that seems a lot. Yeah.
But like there might be one, associated with usually it's just when positions change hours, or new grades are established or things like that. Or I know with the health department, we might have a change in the classification table for that reorganization.
That's right. Yeah.
That's true. I think we're bringing back our part-time admin, so that would be
Right.
one of them there. Okay.
Yep.
Yep. So I'll make that. Yeah, Marissa's coming in she's coming in tomorrow in the morning. So that's why I'm just trying to stay on to listen to sort of some of the things that you need, so I can, if she's a good person to get that from, then I'll definitely do that.
Perfect. That's great.
So the next one is prior year bills. I think that's all set, right?
Yeah,
Set the
and
number.
I assume
We have one. It's
before we get to that, I assume the consensus is on 2-1 that we will recommend favorable action.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, 2-2.
Prior bills. There's only one.
And I don't know if you were looking that up, Diane. Did you have the detail on that prior year bill?
Yes, it's $57.50.
We must draw the line somewhere.
Right.
$57.50.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And
What
what
was
was
it for?
what was it for?
I think it's the treasurer's office. It was one of their collection bills. They just didn't receive it in time.
Okay.
Yeah, I can get the specifics. Let me see if I know. Yeah. So to confirm, it is $57.50 from the treasurer's office, and it reads for demands from Kelly and Ryan.
Okay, gotcha.
So is that a good explanation? One of the treasurer's office collection bills was not received in time?
Yeah, it's really from a collection firm. I think, yeah. I think that's basically it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. We can probably assume that we'll be in favor of that one.
Yeah.
Article 2-3 is general town departmental appropriations. So that's going to be a longer one to write, but we need the dollar amounts.
Yeah, that's the one we'll finalize once we get the numbers, as well as then I think once I've got all the commentary done on that one, I think we'll probably focus on that if we want to make tweaks. That'll probably be the biggest place we make tweaks, I think, next Wednesday, on the tone, or if there's other things we want to mention. beyond the numbers that we usually mention.
So is this the one that you sent me the draft for today,
Um,
John?
That's right, yeah, which is really, it's sort of like, prose on the first half of it and more ideas that I need to turn into prose and add the numbers on the second part. So definitely a work in progress.
So do you want me to put that in, or do you want to wait for now?
Probably
put
wait
it
for
in.
now.
Okay.
Because when were you going to circulate this again, Christina?
I don't know. I mean, I could put it in and circulate it again tonight, and then we can work off of that document, or I could wait if you're going to work on it some more. Wait until you do
Yeah, I mean,
another.
I probably won't have another draft to you until there's actually the actual numbers in it.
Yep.
You can certainly, pop in what I sent you. It's certainly a work in progress, but you might as well,
Well, I
pop it
think-
in as a placeholder, because
Okay.
right now we've got last year's as a placeholder. So
Right. The whole thing is a work in progress.
yeah.
But, or I guess some of it's good. We're getting there.
And also, I think, we'll have the final, numbers and discuss it with the POS on Monday. But, certainly if any members have reservations about recommending the budget that we need to talk about now, we certainly can do that. Hearing no reservations, we can move on to 2-4.
The 2-4 is the
I will say this, the 2-3 though is one of those which I think I mentioned it in the annual report, and I'll do it again in the preface to the commentary, that an article like 2-3, while we're recommending the budget, the devil's sometimes in the details in terms of our commentary, and it goes beyond a yes or a no. So certainly challenges and reservations we can mention in the commentary.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. We're gonna just do it.
Cut and paste, perfect.
Ta-da. Okay, so capital expenditures is next. And again, I think once we have, I didn't have the items, so I will get those and do the explanation. And then I guess I do have a question down here. So, I think probably, we can talk about it if there are any particular items that we don't really think is needed. But assuming that we decide that they are, then we said we recommend that the town approve spending on these items due to there being a clear need for each of these items, and they are an appropriate expenditure of town funds. In addition, we recommend that the town use free cash for these instead of other sources, given that many of the expenses are of a one-time nature. And then this was more specific to last year. Is it the case that the town ended with more free cash than anticipated? I guess it is, right?
Yes, yeah.
But
So
this would be
this commentary, Christina, I'm pretty sure, because we approved capital at STM, this came from STM, the language in here. So in a sense, because we approved capital so late,
I see. So is it 2020 was the correct one to? The town ended fiscal year 2020. 2020, correct?
That was June.
still 2020, and we may have to tweak the language here a little bit. So part of what we were saying was that last fall when we were approving capital, we've already know that we've actually generated additional more free cash than we thought we would in 2020. That also, I think, helps our free cash position, which is why we're okay using it for capital expense this year too. I don't know if there's anything, since we're midway through the FY 21 budget, areas where we know we're going to have savings that we could point to. I don't know offhand. I'm sure there'll be some salary savings. And in revenue, I think may be above pace for. Maybe that's something we should look at. What the it's sort of the same reasoning. We may want to tweak it a little bit. I think we're comfortable using free cash for these.
Yeah.
Because our free cash certainly hasn't degraded in the last 6 months. But we would still, I think, want the caveat that we're not always going to recommend using free cash for these.
Yeah, so we want that too. And then we believe additional financial policies regarding the funding sources of annual capital expenditures would be helpful. And we look forward to working with the BOS in this regard. Is that still the case? Or do we have those financial policies in place now? Is this old?
We don't, I feel like those were, and maybe I'm thinking of something that wouldn't exist as a financial policy, but it's more that, giving guidance to sort of Capcom as well as to us that, hey, a certain level of expenditures, it's wise to use free cash for these, and above a certain level, we should, consider bonding. I'm not sure if we necessarily would have a formal policy the more I think about it, because you need some flexibility there.
So it's more practices, which the practice has improved, right?
Yes, and I think
Is my understanding.
We would certainly need more. We'd welcome more guidelines. I think we're the practice is certainly better than it was several years ago. I think it's a and maybe it's something FinCom sort of sets, maybe not as a formal financial policy, but as a guideline for when we're going to recommend using free cash and when we're going to recommend using, et cetera.
Right. Which we sort of have in the past several years, right? Just sort of said, not that we've sort of said you shouldn't be using free cash for operating type of expenses.
Right.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like we have an informal policy, and the question is, do we need a formal policy, or should it be adopted by the BOS, or is it more of an informal policy that maybe we put something to paper as FinCom?
I suppose we could recommend considering adopting a policy.
Yeah, and I think if I recall, and there were some discussions really budget process, but it was, okay, what are the next sections of financial policies that we want to tackle as a town? And Marissa had a bunch of things on her list. A lot of them were more internal controls, but some of them were also around, I think, forecasting. And this sort of ties in with that a little bit. So we might want to generalize the statement a little more. I think it's still sort of true, but it's whether it's a little different from like capital stabilization fund or stabilization fund, where we really wanted formal policies to say, here's a rule we're going to try to meet every year, and we're going to point to this in all cases. It may be a slightly more flexible guidelines kind of approach.
And do we also want to acknowledge somehow the participation of the Capital Committee?
Oh, yeah, I would.
Like here in this sentence, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. just some acknowledgement.
Like this, we look forward to working with the BOS and the Capital Committee in this regard. They're specific.
Well, I think you were talking more just generally in terms of their recommendation.
Their role in assisting in the analysis of capital expenditures or capital projects.
I guess
Yeah, so it says in the
yeah.
beginning, this is an appropriation. It's a portion of the capital expenditures recommended for FY22 by the town's capital committee after discussions and deliberation among the CapCon, FinCom,
Okay.
and BOS.
That's fine. I think that's enough.
All right, and then there's one more paragraph, and Diane, this is the kind of thing that I will need your help with. So this was from the last, copied over from the last one. So it says the set aside for the capital stabilization fund brought the balance at such time to approximately one, it has a number in there, which is slightly in excess of the town's target of X number. And I don't know if this is true still. We anticipate that by FY22, our financial policies may require an increase of this target, and therefore we do not advocate using funds from the capital stabilization fund. I guess I don't really understand that, so I'm not sure if that's the case or not.
Yeah,
I don't think we need the last sentence.
we might want to strike that.
Yeah, because I think the time of STM, we weren't sure. It turns out we actually, I don't think, needed to. I think the target is still below that 1 point, where it's right now. So the 1.3 might go up. Like the new target might slightly go up, but I think we're still well above it.
Okay. And was there a transfer to the capital stabilization fund at STM? Or, does anyone remember?
I don't remember.
I thought it was actually ATM. Let me, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was at ATM because I think we transferred a bunch at ATM and thought we may even use it for capital expenses at STM. But then we didn't, we just funded it all out of free cash. But the transfer occurred actually at ATM last year.
All right, so I put at the set aside for the capital stabilization fund at ATM in 2020 brought the balance at such time to approximately X, which is slightly in excess of the town's target of Y. Figure out those numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
When we're ready.
The targets may change.
Okay. Okay.
Once again, ask the question, any reservations anyone wants to recommend 2-4?
Back to the capital stabilization, I can add to the fact that we did transfer 907,592 at ATM.
Okay, great.
Right, so that's what's bringing that total up to the 1,000,004. Yeah, so that's the cable. Yeah, because we're at 1.428 currently. Okay. But I will definitely make sure that we have those accurate numbers, though. And if I can ask a quick question just to see if we can assist in any way. So now I better understand. This is the FinCom's book of recommendation, right?
That's
I know
right,
that was a new that was a new practice that you guys were doing. So when I was looking at the warrant, I'm like, oh, that's right. That's the Board of Selectmen. All right, they now have their own book of recommendations, which in effect goes into more detail. So what I would say is that as you guys go through the process and update your commentary, and there are any financial numbers in there that you want just to be double checked and vetted, that's something that we can definitely do in preparation for your Wednesday meeting, because that's essentially what you're looking for, right?
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand now.
Yeah. It doesn't even have to be done by Wednesday, just before it goes to the printer. We just need to make
yeah,
sure
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. because we like to go to.
Exactly, because even if we have to change a number after Wednesday, that's fine.
Yeah.
So in 2.5, if we go there, John, Diane,
Yes.
you can fill in those gaps.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, that doesn't have to be now. So at some point I'll send it to you, and those will be the numbers that we'll want to put in.
So I just added that final paragraph if it meets with everyone's approval.
This one here, yeah.
Right.
Which is the
That's
finance.
good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is this still the case? This highlighted paragraph in yellow? Yeah, I guess, David, I wasn't clear if there was any change to this. Do you want me to read it?
I can see it, just a moment, please. I suppose to be safe, we could eliminate the last sentence, but the general theme would seem appropriate.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's still, there's a good, I mean, we're talking about all the way until, basically, not quite a year and a half from now. Chance it's going to be a rate hike in the next 15 months. Yeah,
So
I would
you would
personally
leave
keep
it in?
there.
Okay, that's fine. Another vote.
Okay.
Any reservations? Definitely speak up.
No,
No.
No.
2-6 annual financial actions. I think this one's pretty self-explanatory. I'll fill in the actual numbers. But it's the transfer to the general fund.
Okay, yeah.
From the cemetery, the Clark property, and the water enterprise fund.
maybe Mr. Clark will make some comments at town meeting. Or that may be him now.
All right, so 2-7. Is completely different from last year, because last year there was, it was all information about numbers.
Right. We no longer, I think we no longer have to actually approve we only have to approve changes. So this is really just eliminating the pool and merging the two together.
Yeah. So I think I can do that. I just didn't have a chance to do that. So that's what this is. Explain why it's a good idea.
Yeah, and you may even still want to use, I guess these don't really talk about spending limits, but yeah, just so it's clear, it's pretty clear in the warrant, but you might want to reiterate it in the commentary that this doesn't have any tax effect, and these revolving funds are really, they're collective spending limits to allow flexibility, but they're not actual assessments. It's just to allow spending to increase when revenue increases. And I mean, you can mention one of the reasons we're doing this is that whole, and this is really getting in the weeds, but it's one of the reasons this was highlighted is because of the pandemic and the pool not being opened, because there wasn't the commensurate revenue that went with that, even though there was still some costs, they ran a deficit. But if it was part of all of, Parks and Rec as a whole, that would have been netted out, and we had to make a transfer of STM because of that deficit. We wouldn't have had to do that if they were all in one fund.
Just writing it sort of.
Hi, it's
Right.
Corinne. Can I ask you guys a question?
Oh, sure. Hey,
Yeah.
Corinne, how are you?
So, good, thanks. So this revolving fund consolidation or whatever we call it, yeah. So that's going to have to go to the Attorney General since we're amending a bylaw. I don't know if this has come up in discussion yet. And that's at least a 90-day process. So I will follow up with Joe and Diane on that. And sorry, I'm at my dining room table and I don't recall if then it goes retroactive. But if we're making financial decisions thinking it's in effect on July 1st, it may not be in effect on July 1st. So I'll commit to following up on that.
Okay, got it. So if it was not, will we still actually have it on the warrant?
Oh, yeah.
It just may not take effect until it's actually been reviewed by the attorney.
Yeah, and again, I apologize. I don't know it all by heart, whether or not it's still, no, I don't think it would go retro now that I think about it, because I still have to post the bylaw change we did in November for the Council on Aging Board. And that doesn't take effect until it comes back from the Attorney General's and Attorney General's office, and I post it. But this is a fiscal thing, so I'm not, I haven't had experience with that. So I just want to point it out. It's probably a non-issue, but I didn't want to not at least kind of highlight it.
And yeah, because you never know when you're going to get it back. We might get it back by the beginning of July, but we might not. Yeah.
Right. Oh, they definitely, they commit to having it back to you within 90 days. And if they can't get it to you within 90 days, they let you know when they will get it back to you. So, but there,
Right.
my point is there is definitely a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And I just want to make sure it's all been taken into, I'm sure it has been taken into consideration, but I'll feel better knowing that.
Sure. Perfect.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Corinne, I just realizing now, I totally blew through the public comment period, which was the first item on our agenda. So certainly if there's any public comment you wanted to make, feel free to. I apologize for that.
Oh, no, that I appreciate that. No, as you guys all know, I appreciate what you're doing. And I'll, if I have anything else to pipe in, I'll sit here at the dining room table and I'll do that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll write that out more for the revolving fund. But was there any other, I think we had talked about it before and it seems like it's a smart and good thing to do.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's all about efficiency. Makes sense. And they're effectively run by the same department anyway. So it certainly makes sense, in my opinion.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, the next one is Hamilton Development Corporation.
Yes, my apologies, Christina, for the capital all in caps.
That's okay. That's okay. I have to go through and retype it, which is not a problem, but I just didn't get around to it yet.
Sorry. So I welcome any comments about the substance of this. And I did not include the appropriation. I just wanted to confirm, is it 7,000?
I may have had that wrong. It might be higher than David. It might.
Diane, do you know what this is?
Do you know that, Diane, off the top, what, from the meals tax, what is going to HDC and what's going to the town?
Well, no, because of course we haven't received those funds yet, but in the budget, it's $66,051. I think that's what Marissa had allocated for that. And she would be doing so based on the revenue that we generated in years past.
And then
You're talking about the meals tax? Or-
right, but then how much was, because then you have to then transfer, I think, then a certain amount gets transferred to the HDC out of that. So the town effectively collects the whole thing. So do we have the amount in the budget that was actually going to be, I thought HDC proposed some specific transfer.
Way back when we used to have like this flat dollar amount of 65,000, I think it was 65,000, and I'm not, no, 10%, sorry. So we get 10%, and is it 6,500 that goes to the HDC? My apologies. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, so maybe that 7,000 is the.
Yeah,
Well-
so yeah,
Well, in prior years, the HDC did get the equivalent of what was collected in the meal tax. Last time around, they were kind enough to moderate their proposal given our fiscal extremis. And I thought, John, we believed this year, likewise, they were particularly
Doing the same thing.
cooperative in
Yeah.
terms of 7,000, but I'd like to add that once we confirm what the figure is.
yes.
This is Corinne here. I've got someone else at my dining room table who
Nice.
is
That's why I
part of
was,
the HTC. So here's Rick for you.
Hey, Rick.
Howdy. So we had proposed, and what we did last year was a 75% of the meals tax to the HDC and 25% to the town, because the town was in anticipating dire straits. So, and in the conversation with the Board of Selectmen a couple of weeks ago, I reiterated that formula, and they seemed to think that was acceptable. We're anticipating that 66,000 that's budgeted will be significantly below that, probably less than half, given the fact that then the appropriation will be coming out of 2020 meals tax revenues. And as you know, as of March, whatever it was, 13th, everything shut down. So and we're anticipating and budgeting for the HDC a significantly reduced amount coming to support our efforts.
so the warrant is blank as to what the expected amount is. And I didn't quite hear you, Rick. What is it, based upon your conversations with the board, that we're expecting to be allocated to HDC?
75% to the HDC, 25% of the receipts to the town coffer general fund.
All right, but we don't have a dollar translation.
No, I mean, you could put in that dollar amount, but as I said, we're anticipating a significant reduction in the amount that I think we got like 75,000 last year. It was a bump, a significant bump up in meals tax revenues from 2019 was so. And then last year, with the reality of COVID and the anticipated drop in revenues for the town manager asked if we would be willing to reduce taking the 100% of the meals tax and sharing that with the town to help out. So we said, sure, let's do a 75% to the HDC and 25% to the town. I don't know what amount we put in, given the uncertainty of what the actual receipts will be in fiscal 2022.
Wasn't it previously measured retroactively? That is,
Well, it follows by a year.
yeah,
In other words, whatever comes in July 1st will be from the prior year. I mean, from
yes.
will be from 2020 receipts,
Right.
and I'm assuming 2021 of the partial 2021 calendar year. And again, because of the COVID, we're anticipating a significant reduction from prior years. So I don't know how to handle that. You could say 66,000, and if the receipts are less, I don't know how that gets. Could you say based on the receipts? Do you have to put in a number, or can you say based on the receipts?
We don't
I
have
think
to.
you might have to put a number. We should look at a prior year warrant, because I think in the past it's been a specific number in the budget.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's here in the warrant to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of blank dollars. So they're going
Right.
to put in a number. So we'll see what the Board of Selectmen puts in there, and we'll put that in
Yeah.
our.
But we will keep in mind, the 75-25 split, and also that we anticipate that the numbers are going to be a lot lower than 65,000.
All right. The rest of this text, I really took from what Rick Anthony and their staff produced.
Yeah, what staff is that, by the way? Well, I'm still looking for those staff people.
I was merely repeating the concept that you had related.
I was doing that facetiously.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Anyway, so yes, that was the text, and hopefully you found that acceptable.
Absolutely. So it's up to the rest of the team here to tell me what, if any, changes are desired.
Okay. Let us know if we can be of help, and thank you for letting me chime in.
It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
So can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So the new allocation for the meals tax, again, we received the meals tax, and whoever may have mentioned, we don't really know what that firm figure is until we know, right? So again,
Right.
when we're trying to develop, the amount, probably Marissa's doing it on an average for prior years. And so that's the amount that is recommended, and then that's what gets approved. So that's the amount that we transfer from the general fund to HDC, right?
Right.
Whatever that recommended amount. So now they have a new allocation where it's 75%, right, versus 100%. And that 100% really isn't every single dollar, because we don't know what it is. It is this budgeted amount based on an average.
Right. And
Okay.
but just so I guess I understand it, since this ATM is effectively setting the FY22 budget, so the transfer would be based on revenue collected in FY21, right? Once that's final.
Yeah. Yes, I would assume so. Yeah.
Yeah. So then it should be based on a lower amount. Say I'm just going to throw a number out there. Say it was 30,000 instead of 66,000, and maybe it's even lower than that.
Okay.
That number should be in that low 20s, around 20,000, 22,000.
Let's see what the selectmen, as Christina, I think, suggested, what they plug in Monday.
No, well, exactly. And I think
Okay.
one number that would be interesting to know, to the extent we've got, what collections we have for, the first 9 months of the year, or if we may not even have that many, because I'm sure there's a delay in et cetera.
Okay.
Whatever, anecdotal evidence we might have as to how far we're behind can help us, can guide us and make sure that number isn't too high.
Yeah. And I just want to make sure that we know what the number is, so we can put that change in
Right.
the budget. Okay.
Otherwise, please let me know if there are any desired changes in the text.
Yeah, and I'll take a closer look at it, but first read it, this looks good, David.
I think it covered a lot of the points that you wish to have noted. So,
Yeah, I definitely want to point to the success of the project and the sale, closing the sale, and the impact that's going to have on positive impact that's going to have on the town.
Okay. Oh, so the next one is OPEB. And did I, David, is this the one that you said that I missed some of your
no,
commentary?
it's later on with the library. I think what I added was a final paragraph.
Okay, so here, during the preparation of this commentary.
Right.
And
Before,
so this, I think,
can I just, I'm sorry, Christina, regarding this final paragraph, I will change it now to reflect that the matter has been rectified.
that's what I was going to
Perfect.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the whole rest of it, you wanted to stay the same? You
Yes,
just
I
wanted to
think
add that?
I plugged in those numbers. Diane, perhaps you could just confirm in the first paragraph the 7.7 actuarial established liability. And I think I got from the quarterly report the fact that we've set aside the 824.
Okay. I can verify that.
Thank you.
And I also just want to let you let everyone know that so far in FY21, we've collected $26,000 in meals tax.
I'm sorry, Diane, what was that amount, did you say?
Just circling back, we've collected $26,000 in meals tax. That's what we received from the state so far. They pay us quarterly.
Okay.
So far in
And-
FY21, $26,028.
And is that through the third quarter, or is that?
No, just 2 disbursements. Yeah, I haven't received March cash yet. So
Okay, gotcha.
yeah, they pay quarterly.
Okay.
Oh, I gave you all caps again. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just decided to start
It's
typing.
it's a test.
Thank you.
I apologize. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
It's my ineptitude.
All right, I'll continue to do that, but I don't need to do it right now.
Right.
All right. So
And I
that's
assume-
good.
I assume there's consensus on that item.
Yes, certainly from my end.
Yep. 210. Sorry, ready?
Yeah.
210 is the patent homestead operating budget.
I didn't put anything in here about the new renter. We should
Oh yeah.
paragraph about that.
While we're on that topic, John, I took a look at the termination provisions, and unless I'm missing something, we can only terminate for failure to generate revenue if there's mutual agreement that there was a failure to generate sufficient revenue.
I think it does say mutual, which is not ideal.
It's ridiculous.
Well, but the other thing is, to Joe's point is that if it's not generating revenue, they're also not going to want to do the deal. And the way I look at it, then we could also sell the property, and like that's unilateral on our.
That's right. That's right. I don't want, for as one member, I don't want to be on board as having, upon review, approved a termination option that's dependent upon agreement of both parties, which that mutual language requires. So we don't have to resolve this now, but I did want to get back to you on that since you and I briefly discussed it last time. I think FinCom's position ought to be communicated. And if that proves not to be so, then I would, as a citizen, want to say that this is not an appropriate contract in that regard. So I just think about it. I don't want to hold us up now.
Okay. Debbie, did you want to put that in the actual commentary here, or just in general
No, I don't want, it causes me to suggest that FinCom should not approve in language the contract in terms of the commentary. The fact of the arrangement can be referenced in this text, in the commentary, but I cannot in good conscience say that I approve of a contract where my option to terminate it is based upon the other party's agreement.
and not to split hairs here, but where do we say, I'm sort of reading in real time. Do we say that we approve the contract?
I'm sorry?
Where do we say we approve the contract?
I'm saying we have reviewed the contract and we ought to take a position as to whether it's appropriate or not. I don't object to referencing the arrangement in the commentary. I would object to making a qualitative assessment of it. Number one, and number two, at some point I'd like to communicate to Joe that we think this was not an appropriate a disposition of prerogatives, because the licensee can terminate at any time for any reason. We cannot do that. And our right to terminate based upon revenue requires there be mutual agreement as to the amount of the revenue.
John, right now, I don't think our commentary doesn't reference the agreement.
That's right.
But
That's
Valerie
right.
just said she might want to add something.
That's
You might want
right.
to add it, and I think David's saying he.
Oh, I'm
that
sorry if I missed that part. Yeah, I would agree we shouldn't qualitatively say anything about the contract. And secondly, we're going to have follow-up discussion about patent, which is, really on, once this thing gets rolling, are we meeting, revenue? And I think we need to always, and relay to Joe that, that we don't like this aspect of the contract. So it is what it is right now, but we need to hold their feet to the fire on, mutual agreement if we're not meeting revenue goals, which I think were attached to the contract. So there is some, look, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you, David. From a legal perspective, I didn't like the language of the contract. I like the fact that we're trying to do something as far as the arrangement goes. And hopefully I won't regret that language being in there if it ever comes to it. But
you wouldn't advise a client to agree to it.
No, but also, we gave our position to Joe, and and you're not going to get anything. At the end of the day, we're not responsible for actually negotiating that contract.
So we can continue that part of the discussion in a later session, but for this evening purposes, as Christina notes, I don't object to a factual statement of the existence of the arrangement.
Yeah, no, exactly. And David, I do agree that we certainly don't want to qualitatively say that, you know, anything about the contract here.
So Valerie, have we sufficiently confused you?
I figured I would just stick to the facts, sir.
Right.
Well said, Valerie. Well said.
You know, just say what happened basically, and just leave it at that.
Okay.
And then, you know, to the extent that we want to put an opinion on, we can do that together after.
Yeah, I think what's more important is, you know, I think our opinion of it's still a wait and see approach to whether this, you know, this arrangement will work.
So Valerie, did you think you're gonna put another sentence in there or something?
Yeah, I'll put a little, I'm trying to think where I have that somewhere. I'm trying to summarize it in just like another couple of sentences that, you know, what they're renting, and just kind of stick to the facts of what happened. And I can send that over to you.
Yeah, you can just email it to me and I'll stick it in.
Okay, when are you doing this?
Well, I guess just before our meeting next Wednesday would be good. Or you can even tell me as we're sitting there next Wednesday, we can put it in.
I will get it to you. I'll try to do it like tomorrow if I can.
Cool. Any other questions about that one aside from that, or I mean, objections to the
Yeah, I just cut and
to the
paste
vote in general?
here. So
We've got some dollar amounts that have to be filled in, Valerie.
Yeah.
yeah,
Actually, I'll highlight those so I can remember that. All
I
right.
have no objection to it.
Me too.
And this is isn't this article just transferring funds from a patent reserve fund to their operating budget?
Fund transfer from patent fund. Looks like it.
That was my understanding as of late. I was just trying to read the warrant. You know, I'm at the section where, and I don't mind. I mean, if you don't mind me asking a question, there is a transfer back to the general fund for support. Is that like the indirect costs?
yeah.
Okay, so that's the indirect cost portion, and then there's this portion, which is like you just mentioned, a fund from its reserves, so to speak, if you will. Right?
Yeah, and I think we may want to, maybe I've missed in the commentary, but we may want to mention that because in years past, we've actually funded out of the general fund. So it like I would expect
That is true. Yeah.
that there would be no tax rate impact for this because we're basically just using patent funds to fund the budget.
I would, may I suggest that we confirm that, John, because I have a vague memory that Joe was asking, remember I keep saying this, for one more year to give it a try. And I think that position was predicated upon raising and appropriating rather than transferring.
Well, then,
So-
yeah, I mean, let's
Just confirm it.
confirm that, because yeah, I thought it was out of reserve fund, but because I thought,
It's out of the capital portion of the patent homestead. So when they went and changed the way the fund was structured, when we had the patent homestead, money was set aside in a capital fund. I actually created its own separate cash for that in the ledger. And there's a certain dollar amount in there. And my understanding from Joe is that he wanted to use a portion of that for this particular year. So instead of supplementing it from the general fund, the intent this year seems to be supplementing it from that capital reserve.
Can we just confirm that this is not raising and appropriating, so there's no tax rate impact?
yeah, because it looks like the general language in the warrant is the stuff we've seen in prior years.
Yes, yes.
And
Yes,
which is,
that's why I
that
was
was why I
confused.
asked the question, because I have similar concerns if that's not the case. But we'll finalize that on Monday, but certainly if tax rate impacts zero and it's a transfer from the fund, then we need to confirm that.
Okay.
All right. You ready for Article 211?
211.
That's the stabilization fund transfer. So I think this didn't change, kind of quotes the policy, and it says that it's moving funds from free cash to the stabilization fund. And then it has some information about the policies, and this is where I'll fill in those numbers.
Yeah, the key will be that this transfer should get us above that threshold.
Okay.
While maintaining the policy as to the free cash.
Yes, exactly. Like, I think this is from the budget presentation. I think that takes us to 5.1% after we transfer the 349. And maybe this is going to slightly change because that was since the general fund budget changes, but it should be, we should still be above the, in fact, I think if anything, it might go slightly up, but as of February, it would have been at 5.1% with that transfer, while free cash would be 5.4%. So effectively, after this is the last transfer. And then as of ATM, if this transfer goes through, we should be in compliance with stabilization fund, capital stabilization fund, and free cash.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Cause for celebration.
Woohoo! You have to find
Gotta find a victory
Excitement.
somewhere, right? Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah. So the next one is the capital stabilization fund transfer. So this one I don't think was in the prior draft that we had, so I copied it over.
Oh, yeah, this is a big question for me. Like, I don't know why this is actually even in the warrant. Which unfortunately means, like, I didn't think we were transferring anything.
Right, this would bring us below, unless it's a minimal amount, this would bring us below the free cash
Right,
threshold.
exactly. And I didn't think we were making any transfer.
Diane, could you check with Joe on that, please?
I'm guessing that
Yes.
there's a remnant from using an older draft of the
Yeah.
last year's warrant as
The
a,
warrant.
yeah.
All right, so I won't do anything more on it and wait and see, check to make sure first that there's actually going to be Is this actually going to be on the
But
warrant?
we will certainly clarify that on Monday night. The only problem is it may shift your numbering by one.
Yeah, I can handle it.
Better for you was 2-12 than like 2-3.
That's right. Yeah. So I think we'll double check before we worry about what it actually says.
Yeah.
None
Exactly.
of the financial documents that that we have or reviewed or any of the changes would indicate that a transfer is scheduled for that, because I remember being in a meeting where Marissa had recommended no transfer is needed because the threshold
right.
has already been met. That's my recollection, but I'll confirm
Exactly.
for David.
That'll
Thank
be,
you.
hopefully that'll be that's an error on the warrant and that'll just be taken out. Okay, so Article 2-13, Community Preservation Budget. So I think this is where it got complicated, because the warrant has the community preservation budget and then a separate one for the tennis courts and then a separate one for town hall.
I know.
And then
Yeah.
I don't think we, split it up that way when we did the assignment. So
Yeah.
And I think it might be, because do we still have those articles for like in 2-13, just looking at the warrant now, which is where they're just paying like, it's like for debt service and reserves and things like that. I don't know. I mean, this is something we should certainly, we got to clarify on Monday. Like, is it really 3 different articles or is it just 2 different articles? And what are the additional line items? Because I don't know if this is just, we're looking at 213 as just language from prior years.
all right. So you think we should wait on that and confirm what the warrant's actually going to look like?
Yes,
Yeah, because normally we would see something, for what specifically the CPC is approved. If there are other line items like, debt service of like,
Sagamore or something.
Sagamore, exactly. That was what I was searching for. Which I think that there's still some existing debt service that it's the line items we have to approve every year. So it probably is a separate warrant article, but we sort of need the details on that.
Okay. So do we go down to 216 then, to the town hall building project?
Yeah, the only question would be on the Patton Park one. Do we need any additional information on the tennis court for our commentary? I don't know if we necessarily do. I mean, this is one of those where I think like the brief summary in the warrant is probably as much as we necessarily need to
it
put.
depends where you draw the line. On the tennis courts, never mind.
Right.
Sorry.
Guys, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to run in about 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, you've got the 8 o'clock cutoff.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, I think the last one I had was 3-1, if you want to skip down to it.
why don't we do that?
3-1, Chabaco Road.
Unless I'm missing something, they're just trying to move the road to protect the natural resources, so.
Do we know what it is? They're
The
trying to get away from.
resources?
Yeah.
I do not.
The draft warrant has a more extensive description, I think.
Yeah, it just says natural resources though. It doesn't, I mean, I don't know if it's wetlands or if it's
Yeah, that's right. We're really just
tree.
requiring an easement so that they can alter the layout and move it away from the natural resource. How much more we need in our commentary, because the bottom line is it's pro conservation and it doesn't cost us anything. We can certainly see if there's more information on Monday, but I'm certainly in favor of this. And
Yes.
Maybe we'll just highlight this so we can remember to see if there's maybe something more descriptive that we can put in there.
yeah, I think this is one of those cases where you actually get more in the warrant than you actually, but it's going to be so detailed that like you don't want to clutter that up in our commentary, otherwise no one will ever read it.
Yeah. All right. Should we continue on to the two smaller ones instead of going back to the town hall?
Yeah, we might as well, and then we can circle back.
Yeah. And this is the one I guess that I missed something from David.
Oh, yeah. It's I just clarified that the cost is a reduction because of this installation. The operating costs of the library will be reduced, so that's a benefit for both towns. And the pilot income goes solely to Hamilton. So I have to change. Well, I changed the wording in my latest draft, Christina, to reflect that.
Oh, here it is.
The last one I sent to you. So it's the saving in the operating costs. I can send it again if you can't.
Yeah, because I think this is the last one I have, and I think that's what that is, another draft. Yeah, yes, David, if you would please send that again.
Sure. And then I combined 3.2 and 3.3. Is that okay, or do you? See, my text was intended to include both.
Yeah. So should I do it up here 3.2 and 3.3?
Well,
I would
do both.
But it's subject to your approval.
Yeah, either that or similar we've done in the past where you talk about the whole project in 3-2 because it's the first article. And then in 3-3, we just reference that it's a similar. The only reason I wouldn't combine the two is I like having every article that people are going to vote on having a clear recommendation below it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would put the bulk of the commentary in 3-2 on what the project is, and then 3-3 is just a more formality of.
Okay,
If that makes sense.
that's fine with me. You like my language about the roof having sprung leaks, has sprouted?
I love the first sentence. I just read that and We can change anything else but that.
Thank you.
If
And
you've
I-
got other changes to other commentary, David, feel free to share them. We're happy to add additional wordsmithing.
I don't remember which glass produced that, but
Whatever it is, I want to drink of it.
And I found in a prior draft this explanation of what the pilot is.
yeah, that's fine.
Do you want to keep that
Exactly.
in? And then maybe make a reference to this, to Article 3.2 down
Okay.
here. Okay. All right, well, that's it, except for, aside from the town hall building project.
Right. I'm just going to make a suggestion directly to Nick, complimenting him on what he's done and asking him if he wants to remind folks that in addition to our having already invested $1 million, this whole thing originated by the town meeting rejecting hiring experts and giving this task to citizens, from which came the town hall building committee, from which came a lot of investment of time and energy, as well as the $1 million. I'll let him cope with that, whether he wants to add that or not.
No,
Okay, guys.
David.
I'll see you.
Oh, thanks, Valerie.
Bye.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Bye.
I completely agree, David, that we should add that part.
Okay. I'll communicate directly with Nick about that. I have to confess, I'm very confused about the HDC appropriation. I don't understand what figure is going to be plugged in.
I don't think we're going to probably know until Monday.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's shaping up nicely.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And Christina, great work in coordinating this stuff. I know
Yes, thank you, Christina.
it's
problem.
completely a exercise of herding cats, and it's also it's a constantly moving target. And then the fun really starts when they start changing the warrant every day.
That's it.
Right up into the end.
Exactly.
That's when-
Can I make a comment back to the community preservation budget? Just because there was mention about the debt payments, and if you look at that first article 2-13, it does make reference to it there. So I did ask Joe about this because this is this isn't customary to how the CPA budgets have been presented in the past, and I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah.
And so I asked him, I says, oh, are you going to be doing the capital? I mean, not the capital, the CPA stuff. And I was like, is it normal that we're doing it this way? And then he had said to me, well, the first article is meant to do the admin expenses and reserves, and now I see debt service as well. And then each article is for each project thereafter. And I remember him saying that to me the other day. So I just thought I'd mention that I saw
Okay.
the word debt service in there. So to your point, it would all be captured there. Again, do you have to itemize it out? You know, I don't know.
Yeah, and now that I think about it, in years past, where if there were, say, like 7 or 8 items on the list, nothing as big as like the town hall project, I feel like, some of those would be debt service, and then other ones would be things like the tennis courts. And I think they read them all off, and then they said, if you want you could hold on them, similar to what we do with like the budget article. And I'm guessing that they were just advised by the law firm that maybe you put all the annual recurring ones, reserves and debt service ones, administration in one article, almost like a consent motion. And then anything that's a specific project you do as a separate article. I'm guessing, I don't know. But it's definitely different than we've done in the past.
Right, because those those operational ones would be, from, from the funds versus from the reserves, right? So then you
Right.
have the opportunity to say, okay, the items under here are from this source and these other ones are from this source and so on, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. One of the project ones are actually
Fund balance or whatever.
the other ones are just either making transfers or just servicing debt on previously approved projects.
I wonder if do you see the comment from Tom here? It says, I note that a 2/3 vote is required for this article. And there's not that note on the general one, but on these two specific ones there is. So maybe they need to be separate.
Oh, that's a good point too. Yeah. Yeah, I was more surprised that 214 was separate from 213. I always thought that because it was similar to last fall, we did the
I see,
town
yeah.
hall. Yeah, as a separate one, the CPC one. But
Oh yeah. All right.
yeah,
well,
I mean,
we'll
just
see. Okay.
as general, commentary. Once again, that 2/3 threshold. It's going to be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone saw the sort of survey results.
Yes.
No.
They weren't promising, but they were.
No.
There wasn't a vast collection of people.
Well, then that's the thing. I mean, there were a lot of responses, but at the same time, you don't know. And that was one of the reasons too, certainly on I always find sometimes the negative comments are more insightful than the positive ones, which is why I personally didn't take the survey, because I didn't want to see the results in a sense. And it's more, everyone involved with this project, anyone involved with town committees, have probably made their opinions already known. It's the people that, will come to ATM or will actually show up and vote that we may not know their opinions. But we shall see. I know I'm sure we'll probably talk about it more on Monday, but it's potentially an uphill battle.
Okay. John, what was the disposition of the citizens petition?
Oh, and I want to make sure, and I'm sure the board will talk about it. We may talk about it again on Monday, but if I remember, and Christina, I know you were on part of the BOS meeting. I can't remember if they brought it up then on the one on Monday, but
I missed it.
it was certainly not going to be on ATM. They thought there was a path to resolution, but if there wasn't a resolution, that it would potentially go on STM.
Okay.
But it was not going to be kept on ATM, and they didn't really go into any detail what the path for resolution was, but it definitely didn't seem like we're just punting it to the fall. It was more that there might be a path to resolving it before then.
Do you remember who referenced the potential path?
Joe did, but he didn't. We didn't go into details of what that path was.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's I almost missed it because it was talked about really briefly.
Yep.
He was more just talking about the fact that it wasn't going to be on the spring, and that but that if it's not resolved by the fall, then it could be brought on the fall one.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, that's all the details. And you may even, and because it may not actually be brought up specifically at the meeting on Monday, at least with how to resolve it. If there is a path, David, you may want to reach out to Joe and see if there's
Okay.
there's any substance behind that, or whether it's more of a just a, if it's resolved, then it won't be on the.
Right. All right.
So sorry, I'm not more help, but it was
No, no, it's fine.
it was a
Thank you.
30-second reference at the meeting, and it was more just about the fact that it wouldn't be on the warrant in the spring.
Yep. Okay.
Yes, I think we're all the way through it, right, Christina? That we didn't skip over any other ones, did we?
Nope, I think that was it. The town hall. Yeah, so we'll have to clean it up because there's the CPC town hall building project section of it, and then the plain old town hall building project segment of it. But that was it then. Then it goes into the Article 3. All right.
Great.
I'll so I think at this point, maybe I'll clean it up a little bit, but then wait for Monday's meeting and then make whatever revisions need to be made, hopefully by Tuesday, and send it around again.
Yeah, and the biggest holes will be really my sections, the beginning one in the budget article, which I will hopefully have something like by end of the week or the weekend, at least with, even if I haven't plugged all the numbers in, it'll have all the commentary there, so that we can then after the Monday meeting dig into that so we can finalize it on Wednesday.
The urge to complete at least my assignments reminded me of deadlines for papers in school and the absolute resistance of doing them. Anyway. So true. That's why you got to have that deadline. Otherwise, it always gets to the. It's made even harder that we can't, collectively we can only finalize these things as a group, and right.
So you always got to work backwards from that. But
we have to be a little careful of the open meeting law, so we ought to just focus everything to Christina.
Yeah, exactly. And Christina, you saw that Nick's email that he had sent earlier today, right? It was with mine.
Yes.
Where he updated his commentary, but he sent it to me because I think he forgot that you were running the document.
Okay, yeah, I'll make sure to get that in too. Next editions. All right, do we have anything else to do tonight?
I don't think so. And, I don't know if there are any liaison updates. The only one I really have is from the BOS meeting the other night. There's the BOS is going to put together a steering committee for the master plan. And I think what they're looking at is the 9-member committee. And I think they were thinking that 5 of those members would be representatives that come from specific town boards. But at least 4 of those would be just members of the citizenry at large. In terms of the boards, it wasn't finally determined which boards would be represented. Essentially, what I had said is that FinCom would probably like to have at least a liaison representative, if not an actual member of that committee. We did need to check to see whether a FinCom member could serve on that committee. I think it probably can. The bylaw usually restricts it from serving on any committee that makes an appropriation. Does also talk about disposing of property. I think they were going to check with the lawyers, but I think it probably won't restrict us from actually being on the committee. But I basically said, look, even if we're not on the committee, we'd have a liaison because we certainly want to be involved in that process. And the talk was one of the slots would be either a Capcom member or a FinCom member. I would think personally, like the 2, assuming we can have someone on that I'd rather have someone from FinCom, just because there's a lot of implications with this master plan, especially when you start talking about revenue.
John, could you reinforce that thought with Joe and the chair of, what's his name?
John.
Yeah, my mind has left me. Could you reinforce that preference?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's sort of how we left it, was that we would like to be actually a member of that committee. If we can't because of the bylaw, then we would have a liaison, but either way, we'd have to be involved. But I definitely reiterate that preference.
Thank you.
Christina or David, I don't know if you had any additional updates.
Oh, no, I don't. I have a motion to make, but
Hold on, let me just check. Yeah, no, I didn't even take any notes from the liaison committee. So no updates for me.
then I respectfully would make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Left it hanging there for a second. All right, all in favor. Start with you, David.
David Wenger, aye.
Christina Schenk Hargrove, aye.
John Prulidge, aye. We are adjourned.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
evening.
guys.
Everyone.